Hey, how's it going? Nick here. Subscribe to my YouTube channel there, and this is a video that I don't know. I just thought of this because I was watching cable last night late, and Fletch was on, and then I remembered that Fletch was a first date, first movie that I went on with a girl that I ended up dating for a while. It wasn't technically our first date, but it was the first movie we saw together, kind of first date. So that got me thinking. I had kind of written down, for some reason, the first movies slash first date that I went on with some of the girls that I've dated or had relationships with in the past. And I remember I did this list some time ago and tried to analyze each movie that first movie that we saw together to see if that had any effect on whether the relationship worked or not. And well, because I've been single for a long time, clearly none of them really worked. And I believe it was after it was a few months after my second divorce, 6-7 months after my second divorce, where I was like, did the first movie that I saw with these women, can that be traced back to why it didn't work? So think about that. If you think about the first date that you went on with people from your past, and what was the first movie that you saw together? What was the first sort of first date movie thing? And did that really affect the relationship in any way, or does that represent the relationship? Let me start off with. I'm going to go a little chronologically. With the first movie slash first date thing, and try and analyze what those movies meant to the relationship. But I went on one date with a woman, and I've told this story before if you've listened to my radio show. I actually wrote it into a play, but I actually took a girl on a first date to see David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers, if you're not familiar, is one of my favorite movies of all time. But it is Jeremy Irons plays twin drug-addicted gynecologists in it. And it is about as wrong a first date movie that you could possibly imagine taking a girl on, especially a girl that you don't know. I mean, it would be kind of questionable even if you knew this girl. Even if you were with her for a long time, if you had a relationship, you would still kind of go, hey, listen, I was thinking about going to see Dead Ringers. You want to come with me? You do not take a girl on a first date to see this movie. I did. And I did it because I was like, I'm going to test this chick. Because you know what? If she likes Dead Ringers, then she's cool. Then she's all right. I was such a jagoff. And the kicker is I had already seen it. So it's not like I was surprised by it, and of course she was horrified, and that was the only date we ever went on. I mean, she couldn't get out of the car fast enough when I dropped her off at home. I think she's probably still hiding under her bed crying. So first date movie, that is still the topper. I've never topped it. I've never done anything worse. Taking a girl on a first date to see a movie about twin drug-addicted gynecologists who make up, by the way, special tools for deformed women and their vaginas. This is one of the things that the movie's about, and I thought this would be a good test. So, anyway. All right. The first girl that I ever had a major relationship with, she was my manager at McDonald's. I've had a lot of healthy relationships. She was my manager at McDonald's. I was 16. She was 21. She had a kid. So, yeah. And the first date that we went, actually the first date we ever went on was we saw Loverboy and Frankie and the Knockouts. Yeah, man. Fucking Loverboy. Yeah. So our first date was technically not a movie, but we saw Frankie and the Knockouts, who did Sweetheart, and Loverboy on their Get Lucky tour. So anyway, that was our first date. I was 16, she was 21. We went to go see. I think I was 17 at that point. No, I was still 16. I didn't turn 17 until July. So anyway, I was 16. She was 21 with a kid. We got a babysitter for her, so it was okay. Okay, but the first movie we ever saw together was Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, the Steve Martin movie. So we were off and on for almost 3 years. It's just weird that it was just not. It was just strange. But Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. I don't know what that means about it. It was a Steve Martin comedy, which was shot in black and white so that they could mix him into actual clips from old movies with, Bogart and Cagney and all those other guys. Fine, I think, and I'm trying to remember. I think she liked it. I liked it. Not a terrible movie to take on a first date. So I don't think that was any indication as to why the relationship didn't work. I think it was the fact that I was 16, she was 21, and she had a kid. All right. The next girl that I kind of dated was a girl it didn't last very long, but we went to go see Fletch. So that's a good first date. Fletch, classic Chevy Chase, very funny movie. She laughed her ass off. We both had a good time. The relationship didn't last very long, a few months. It was a summertime relationship. Didn't last very long. She had just graduated high school. I was a couple of years out of high school. I was a kid anyway, 1985. So there you go. I just turned, I guess I was like 20? Yeah, 19, 20. She had just graduated high school, so I was about a year and a half, 2 years older than her. We enjoyed Fletch. I remember she really laughed hard at the scene where Chevy Chase is showing the Polaroid, saying, "Hey, here's the dog who tried to eat me. Here's the car, he ate me." I remember her laughing her ass off at that. We saw it at the Portage Theater, Six Corners. Okay, the next girl I went out with that had kind of relationship with, this was in 1986. And the first movie we ever saw together was Sweet Liberty. And this was an Alan Alda movie that he not only starred in, but he wrote, directed it. Michelle Pfeiffer was also in it. The strange thing was that we went to the screening of it. This was when I started to work with Roy Leonard from WGN, and he was getting me into screenings, and I was seeing movies ahead of time. So I took her to see it because she had a crush on Alan Alda, this girl. I don't know. This 19-year-old girl had a crush on Alan Alda. So I took her to see it. He was at the screening. It was at the Old Orchard Theater in Skokie. And we went, and she loved it because Alan Alda was there. He did like a Q&A afterwards, and she asked a question. And so she was very thrilled about it, and she was happy. She was also the girl that I took to see Top Gun. And during the volleyball scene, she literally dug her nails in my arm because she was so turned on by the volleyball scene. That was another summer relationship. Lasted till around September. Then in September, I took another girl I started dating. I took her to see, I guess David Cronenberg was a big first date thing for me. I took her to see The Fly. Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis. This was in the fall of 1986. I took this girl to see The Fly. And actually, it seems like an odd choice, and maybe it was an odd choice. I don't really know. I personally think that The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly, is one of the greatest love stories ever filmed. I think it's really one of the best movie love stories of all time. I think it's beautiful. It's also completely gross and disgusting. But the girl I went with, she seemed to enjoy it. It seemed, she seemed to like it. It didn't put her off or anything like that. We only lasted a few months. Second date was a double date that I went on with her, and it was Blue Velvet. I took her to see Blue Velvet, and we were on a double date. It was my best friend at the time and his new girlfriend, and they were both not thrilled about Blue Velvet. But The Fly was okay. It was all right. I was moved by it. Esquire Theater. Saw it at the Esquire Theater. Let's see. I took a girl that I dated briefly, who I worked with at Jewel. I took her to a screening of Stand and Deliver with Edward James Olmos as the teacher. That went over okay. It didn't work out, though, between us because she was a cokehead. Yeah. And I remember during the screening, and I took her to a critics screening in a screening room downtown to see the movie. And I remember during the screening, she got up twice. The movie was about an hour and 48 minutes long. She got up twice during the movie. I thought to go to the bathroom. Yes. But it was to do blow. It didn't last very long because I was tired of her walking around with her pager. I worked with her at Jewel, but she enjoyed cocaine. But my favorite line in that movie, in Stand and Deliver, is Lou Diamond Phillips, who comes in and goes, "Hey man, what's calculus? What's calculus?" See? I don't know if she was laughing at that line because she may have just been laughing at the fact that she had done 14 pounds of cocaine during the screening. Anyway, Stand and Deliver. She was waiting for cocaine to be delivered. Hey! Then I dated a girl briefly who was actually the daughter of someone that I worked with at WGN. I dated her very briefly. The first movie that we went to see together was Always, the Steven Spielberg romantic film with Holly Hunter and John Goodman and Richard Dreyfuss. Wonderful movie. I had seen it already. I took her to see it. I don't think she liked it very much. But the first movie that we saw together, like the first movie we saw that I didn't already see, was Hard to Kill, Goddamn Seagal. And we went to the Golf Mill with my friends. Like a bunch of my friends and I took her and we went to go see it. She didn't want to see a fucking Steven Seagal movie, but we all went. We were going to go out for pizza afterwards and all that stuff. And I remember one of my friends got into a huge fight with his girlfriend that night. And it was a mess. It just was a mess. And this was like the first time I took this date out with all of my friends. Like 6 of us all went to go see some fucking Steven Seagal movie at the Golf Mill, and she went with me. Not surprised. This relationship only lasted a couple of months. Took her to see a Steven Seagal movie with my idiot friends, and there was a big blow up where my friend was like going to walk home from the Golf Mill because he was pissed at his girlfriend. Ridiculous. All right, one of the big relationships that I had started in the summer of 1991. It lasted only almost a year, but it was like a massive relationship for me. I fell in love with this girl, and when she broke up with me, I was heartbroken. We met at an Elvis Presley impersonators convention. I'm not shitting you. There were 360 Elvis impersonators at this hotel, right on it's where the Westin used to be, in Rosemount. And we went, and my friends and I went just on a lark, as a joke. And here's this hot chick with her friend, and I met her, and she was being picked up by Elvises. There were a bunch of Elvi everywhere. Anyway, so I met her at an Elvis Presley impersonators convention, and it would have been a great story to share with our kids, but we never had kids because she ended up busting up with me about 10 months later. But it was a weird place to meet. There were 360 Elvis impersonators. At one point, all the Elvis impersonators were on stage, and it collapsed. And then, like, afterwards, when they stopped, we went to the hotel bar, and I saw her across the room, and we started to talk a little bit. And there were Elvi everywhere. There were fat Elvises, old Elvises, young Elvises, Jailhouse Rock Elvises, all that stuff. And we went up to one of the Elvises' rooms. You know, he had like a suite, and there were a bunch of Elvi everywhere, and they were all hitting on my girl. Her name was Leslie. That's why I used to call her Leslie Presley. But anyway, the first movie we actually saw together was Boys in the Hood. At the Webster Place. That was the first movie we ever saw together. And it was a real pleasant one. We were very thrilled and happy afterwards. But yeah, Boys in the Hood. Good movie. I don't know what that means, about our relationship. I was way into hip-hop at that time, like big time into hip-hop. And she was not. So anyway, she was from the suburbs. I was from the city. It wasn't meant to last, but we met at an Elvis Presley impersonators convention, and the first movie we ever saw together was Boys in the Hood. So the next girl that I dated, I ended up... the next girl that I dated was a girl that I met at Ginger's Ale House, which was a bar that I used to hang out at, and she came in with a few people one night when we were there. I was doing a play called The Angry Show, which was a 2-man play that my friend Mike Meredith and I used to perform at the Factory Theater in Rogers Park. We'd perform it every Thursday night. Then afterwards, everybody would come back and we would drink at Ginger's Ale House on Grace and Ashland. Well, a girl came in, very hot. She came in and lived right down the street. She was getting ice for the party, and I guess she was... I had never seen her in there before, but I guess they kind of knew her, so they gave her some ice for the party, and she saw me, and we stared talking, and she's like, hey, I'm having a party down the street. So that's where we first met. I met her at Ginger's, and then went down to her street, went down the street, up the block to her place, ended up staying the night. and we ended up dating. And about a day and a half later, the first movie that we saw together was Demolition Man. Yeah, at the Norwich. This was when I was living in the Honeybee Complex. The Honeybee Complex. I was living with my friend Scott there, and it was just this ridiculous apartment complex on the northwest side, right near Norwich, where all of the apartments and the buildings looked exactly the same. The Honeybee Complex. Anyway, so that's we saw it at the Norwich, and we saw Demolition Man, the Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes piece of shit. I believe she enjoyed it. So anyway, that was our first one. I don't know what Demolition Man. We lasted I don't know, 7-8 months, and then we broke up. And she worked at Planet Hollywood, and so I ended up hanging out at Planet Hollywood again a lot. This is when there was Planet Hollywood downtown. She was a waitress there, and I ended up sitting at the bar a lot, just drinking for free at Planet Hollywood. Best thing about that was that in that Planet Hollywood, the severed ear from Blue Velvet was actually framed and on the wall right next to a table where you could eat. That was my favorite thing about it. I don't know. She was a cool chick. We had some fun watching Demolition Man. If I remember correctly, Dennis Leary was in it, and Dennis Leary was like my hero at that time. All right, so the next one that I ended up dating, I married. So this was my first wife, and we didn't really go to a lot of movies together. At this time, I was going to a lot of screenings, and I took her to a couple. But the first movie that we actually kind of saw together, date-wise, was goddamn Time Cop with Van Damme. I don't know what's going on here with these. I noticed that there was a lot of. I guess there was a string of really stupid action movies that happened, and this was right in the middle of it because we just had Demolition Man. I dated a girl. First date was Demolition Man, and then this girl I ended up marrying. We went to see Time Cop. We both actually had a great time. We had a blast. Goddamn Time Cop with Van Damme. I don't remember much about it. I just remember that there was time, and he was a cop. I think he did the splits and kicked somebody in the balls. I don't know. But this woman would go on to be my wife, and we would see a ton of movies together. But the very first one that we saw, as sort of a date, first time, was goddamn Time Cop. Was with her for, we were together for, Jesus Christ, 5 years? Almost 5 years, yeah. So that was Time Cop. The next girl that I dated, who was a great relationship for me, was a girl that I dated right at the beginning of the year 2000. And the first movie we saw together was goddamn Pitch Black with Vin Diesel. And another ridiculous action, stupid ass movie. And I remember this girl and I had well, first of all, I thought our relationship was great. We were together for 3 years. We lived together for over 2. But yeah, the first movie we ever saw together was Time Cop. Time Cop, mixing it up with my first wife, Pitch Black. And I remember we were just making fun of it the whole time. We saw it at the City North 14, which at that time, sort of a brand new theater there on Western Avenue. We used to call it the Big Scary Theater on Western. We saw a ton of movies there. But yeah, we went to go see Pitch Black. And she was game. I said, hey, I got to review it on the show on Saturday. And she's like, fuck, I don't care. We had a blast. Pitch Black with Vin Diesel. Pitch Black. So, and then my second wife, our first movie together, our first date together was Sideways with Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, Virginia Madsen, Sandra Oh, obviously. And that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And that movie means a lot to me. I remember we had just sort of started dating, and I was I was very leery about getting into any kind of relationship because the Pitch Black girl that I dated completely shattered my heart, and I was just very not ready to get into any kind of relationship. And we ended up going to see Sideways together. We were out the night before having some cocktails, and then we went to the movie the next day. And I remember I lost it during the movie when I was watching Sideways, and she's sitting next to me, and I didn't know her very well. We had we'd met each other a few times and hung out for a little bit, but I didn't know her really well. I certainly didn't know her well enough to, like, fucking break down in front of her while I was watching this movie. And I was in kind of a weird headspace at that time, and I was pushing 40. I was going to turn 40, and here I am seeing this movie that kind of changed my life. And it was a movie where the main character that Paul Giamatti played is, without question, the movie character that I've most identified with in my life. Like Miles, that is me to a huge degree. And so I just kind of lost it, and I spent a lot of time doing this. She was sitting next to me, and I was just like, because I was losing it during the movie, and like really, it profoundly affected me. And so that's the first time I ever kind of like, there's a girl sitting next to me, and I'm like, and I was losing it during the movie. And then afterwards, I kind of couldn't speak, and I was like, I'm just gonna go home, and I went home. And we sort of kind of dated a little bit, and then we got serious, and we ended up getting married a few years later. A bunch of years later, actually. So that one lasted, 6.5 years, something like that. So it lasted a long time. But I think that it was just a little off-putting. I felt it was a little off-putting for her to be sitting next to some idiot who was like weeping and kind of like really having a profoundly intense experience over this movie. So those were the first date movies that I can remember. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, Fletch, Sweet Liberty, The Fly, Dead Ringers, Stand and Deliver, Hard to Kill, Boys in the Hood, Demolition Man, Time Cop, Pitch Black, and Sideways. Those are the list of, like, I've had more relationships, obviously, and I've dated more girls, but those were kind of like, actual kind of girlfriend things, relationship things. So, but yeah. That sums it up, and I've tried to analyze if these movies that I saw with these women for the first time had any effect on the relationship, and then I just realized, all of this stuff that I was talking about, I'm just a bad boyfriend. So there you go. And I think it all goes back to the Dead Ringers thing. I think I was doomed after that. I think after I took the girl to see Dead Ringers on a first date, I think the gods spoke. The gods have spoken and said, Nick, you really did a bad thing there, so it doesn't matter what movie you take another girl to, everything's going to be fucked up. But anyway, so that's it. Think about it, though. What were the first movies that you ever saw? If you're with someone, first date you ever went on, did it go well? Did you guys like the movie? Did you have the same taste in movies? That kind of thing? So, I don't know. Gives you a little bit to think about. So those were my first dates. What were yours? And how many times have you been divorced? And did you ever take someone to go see Dead Ringers? And then they ran away and almost called the police because they thought you were a fucking psycho? All right. So, anyway, there's the deal. More movies coming up. I'm going to see West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's version of it, and I'll have a full review and a preview of that and much, much more. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Sometimes I just like to get on here and fuck around, which is what I just did. So think about your first date movies, and if you want to leave some comments, do it. Thank you.